Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, and welcome to this joint webinar between Virtuoso and Mobile Cloud Operational Assurance, ensuring your environments and automation work. My name is Ryan T. Thornton, and as product marketer for Virtuoso, it is incumbent upon me, a contractual obligation and my absolute pleasure to lead you through the next 30 minutes. And hopefully, I've been fast enough for nobody to ask yet. Yes, this webinar will be recorded and winging its way to you tomorrow. And yes, I've started Christmas early. I am in Austria in lockdown. So I thought, why the devil not put a Christmas jumper on? So before an ado has been in any way furthered, let's meet our panel. They are the founder who never flounders, Mr. Andrew Doughty. Hello, Andy. From Mobile Cloud, he's very much assured and wants to help you be too. It's Mr. Stuart, go-to guy. Hello, Stuart.
Hi.
I'm bringing him some exquisite engineering skill. He's Virtuoso sales engineer without compare. It kind of works. It's Mr. Mark Lovelady.
Hi,
Hello,
everyone.
Mark.
Pleasure as always, Ryan.
So what are we discussing today? What is our summary? We're going to do an introduction and talk about the session objectives before moving on to environments that work well, or environments work well until they don't, as a slightly old adage goes. What is service assurance? We're going to be looking at some case studies. We do have a video. We'll probably send that out to you just so we can keep this nice and sharp. You'll still get all that information, but trying to get it in for the 30 minutes. We know everybody's diaries often look like somebody losing at Tetris, and we're delighted that you're here, and we will help to make this as quick as possible with as much information and as worthwhile as possible. And we'll then go on to a summary, which will be formed part of a demo, which Mark will be leading people through. And finally, you'll have the opportunity to ask some questions. You can keep them coming in through that question and answer panel, which means I am able to pass over to the always ready Stuart. Thank you, Stuart. He is always ready.
So Mobile Cloud is an automation consultancy, and in helping clients achieve their goals in automation, we've identified a number of common themes within those organizations. First of all, in terms of how their organization is set up and their automations within it, we find they're extremely reactive to any challenges that may occur within the business operations. Now, because of that, it means that the automations need to be the same. And what we have seen is that where there are points of business failure, often the business realizes the issues of automations or systems not working long before the Center of Excellences or IT teams do. And this has a real reputational impact on the automation team or on the GIS team, and ultimately is driving some real issues with regard to the cost of. And that cost, as you can see from what Gartner is saying, is the average cost of downtime is £4,000 per minute. That's a staggering amount of money. And if we have our automation platforms or our system platforms that are going down, and the business is paralyzed, particularly with one of their key systems or their key automations, has a real impact, not just on cost, but also customer experience. Next slide, please. And of course, we've all seen these adages of where there have been some fairly major issues, like the BA data center, where they had to cancel flights and there were stranded passengers. And the estimated outage was greater than 80 million. And then there's the other issue around TSB, which is another well-known one where the incident cost was estimated to be more than 180 million. But if you bring that back to all of our day-to-day operations, what we are finding here is that the organizations in the situation where they can have teams of people paralyzed for half a day or a day, or they're not able to meet their customer objectives or meet their customer deadlines because the automation's down. And what we're seeing with service assurance, particularly in the automation space, is imagine the ability to be able to identify through automated testing be able to identify any point of IT failure before it happens, so that the automation team or the IT team can be proactive to bring it back up and reducing the impact on the business. Over to you, Andy.
Great, thanks, Stuart. Yeah, hi everyone. So what I'll run through now is Stuart's talked a bit more about the impact there and really the context of what we want to demonstrate here, because we're going to show you our platform in a few minutes' time, and show you how Virtuoso as a platform can be applied to operational assurance, to give, and it mentioned the words on the previous slide, that peace of mind. You know, it's about confidence, it's about risk, it's about the ability to readily test and identify proactively any impact, any issues, any unexpected changes, anything that's going to disrupt critical business processes from functioning as expected at any given point in time. And we're just sort of calling out some of the problem areas here. The bigger problem holistically, of course, is that organizations don't have a safety net in place to really do this. They don't have a suite of well-constructed, data-driven business process tests that correspond to fully test end-to-end critical business processes that can identify issues that run the risks that Stuart was talking about. And the reason is that most organizations are still testing manually. So even today, with a potential customer, and we're talking here about the UK government, you know, they're implementing systems which presently take 2 weeks manually for a team to regression test. So to test whether any new changes being introduced into a version of the software is going to impact something upstream or downstream that detrimentally impacts, you know, the overall process or service from working. So 2 weeks. So the upshot of that is that they're only now contractually and only ever going to fully regression test this implementation 3 times in a year. So what we're going to talk about here and what we're going to show you now with Virtuoso is how can you take that, you know, that it's not even a risk-based approach, it's this incredibly risky approach, and move that to being something that you can run daily. So how can you fully operationally assure your critical business processes, your automation, your services on a daily basis? So the first thing is highlighted some problems. If you test them manually, by way of that example, as you can see, that's just not feasible. But also, if you're using a traditional approach to automated testing based on code-based frameworks, then it's just too complex, too time-consuming, too technical to actually build the level of testing needed to give that assurance in the timeframes you've got, whilst there's still ongoing change happening to those services, to those processes. So that obviously leads to that being expensive, the ROI being impacted. So is it really worthwhile? So what many organizations do is fall back on some sort of hybrid manual and automated approach. So lead times still long, feedback loops long, and quality is at risk. Next slide, please, Ryan. So in terms of solution, so this is the segue now into Mark's demo, because I'm going to show you some of these things really in action. So Virtuoso is a platform, a SaaS-based platform, no install, no setup. Anybody can use it. So it's accessible to manual, functional, business analysts, product teams, business personas, as well as the technical teams, of course. And what Virtuoso allows you to do is for your UI, functional, integration, visual compatibility, API testing, it allows you to very, very rapidly create data-driven self-healing tests, which execute on the cloud, but in natural language. So within the platform, we harness AI, so branches like machine learning, robotic process automation, and natural language programming, so that we can make automation accessible to anybody we can make it incredibly fast, and make it robust. So what this gives us, just before we jump into the demo, so what this allows us to do is essentially from the design, even at this very, very early stage of designing a change or a brand new digital process or automated business process, from the design within Virtuoso, because of the way Virtuoso works with applications and the software, you can build automated tests from those designs, from those technical design documents. During implementation, you'll have automated tests that you can iteratively run as you're developing and as you're making changes to really show what you're building. And of course, the output then, the outcome is, once you've got those processes live, you can run a full regression suite, giving you full operational coverage on demand or just scheduled to run daily. So let me hand over to Mark to show the platform. So it'll be a short, sharp demo, but Mark's going to show you just really the basics of the platform, of how you can author, execute, report, and maintain on your tests.
All right, thanks, Andy. And I trust my screen is being shared correctly. Can someone confirm?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. So jumping into this then, I've got on my screen a very simple list of NLP syntax commands. And these are the commands you can use to automate the testing of any business web application. So SAP, Oracle, Dynamics, Salesforce, or any business application that you can access via URL. And these commands are designed in such a way that even non-technical people can use them, each providing a different example. So whether it's to click on an element or to write in a text input field, you can drill down and quite easily even copy and paste this into your test, replacing the existing text with what you want to enter, meaning that it's very easy to actually get up to speed with this. And within hours, if not days, you can be authoring tests quite quickly. Now, in this example, I've got an SAP instance, so the cloud version of SAP S/4HANA, where I'm logging on, creating an order, and then posting a goods receipt. And then just running through some of the syntax here, you can see navigate to, we provide a URL, write $username in field email. And in this case, we're actually referencing an environment variable. So you can preload credentials from different environments, meaning that with one test, you can select from a drop-down menu and use that test against different environments automatically. And then I've done very much the same. We click on continue. You can just sort of see here, the bots are then populating the correct fields, identifying the buttons, and then running through the test. Noticing also that in each step, we're collecting before and after element interaction screenshots, which is great from a test evidence point of view, but it also adds to the model that is built by the Virtuoso bots to then self-heal, which we'll look at shortly. Then drilling down here to creating an order, we can run assertions to validate that certain data exists on a page, in this case, the procurement button. We click through the procurement button and then begin to create an order, all the way down to the point where we need to enter a supplier number in the supplier field. And notice again here, I've said write $supplier in field supplier. In this case, I'm actually referencing test data. So you can import data from perhaps CSV files or even through our API to automatically scale out testing. So for example, where you might have one resource running one of these tests, that same resource could now run hundreds or even thousands using test data. And then jumping back through this, you can see here, we write in different fields. We can make keyboard presses, and then just skipping to the end here, where we now have a purchase order number generated. You can very easily store this as well in a variable, which means that if you're working from a front-end system or between different business system modules, you can collect the data that's generated during test, switch to a different module, a different URL, or a different system, and then reuse that data. So as you can see here, where I say write $standard PO in field input is simply reusing this PO number captured earlier. Now, in terms of self-healing, when you run the bots for the first time, they collect the element selector details, the element structure, and other technical details in the background, as well as the screenshots like I mentioned. And what this means is that a comprehensive model of the element is developed or generated, which means that, especially in the case of SAP, when some of the element changes, like the XPath ID or the ID number or even the element structure, it could even be a language change, the bots are able to self-heal. So as you run the test and one of these changes is encountered, the test is going to keep running and you don't need to maintain that test anymore. And if we look back across the last 12 months, across all tests, across all customers, the accuracy of the self-healing is around about 93%. And so it's very accurate. Now, I mentioned generating variables within the test. It's also possible as well to make API calls to pull in data or to post data, which can all be stored within variables. When it comes to actually running tests, the first thing I want to mention is that you can create execution plans where you define what test you want to run across which browser, any modern web browser here. Set that to run hourly, daily, or weekly, and then against which environment you want to run that in. Now, everything you see here as well, consider Virtue as an open API where you can make API calls to trigger these different tests across different browsers and so on, which makes it very easy to then integrate within your CI/CD pipeline. And we have out-of-the-box integrations as well with tools like Jenkins, Azure DevOps, Circle CI, or TeamCity. And it just means that as soon as code is pushed, you will have the test ready, again, based on perhaps written requirements or wireframes. And the developer, whoever commits that code, is going to receive feedback almost immediately, or however long the test takes to run, which is typically within minutes. And that feedback they receive, I'm just going to drill down into some historic reporting data here, and just notice that you can filter previous executions, so previous tests based on different tags, naming conventions, or outcomes. But in this example where we have our failed step, you're provided with a root cause analysis tab. And this is simply an execution history. So when this step previously ran, if it did pass before, you will also be provided with a screenshot of that to compare against. You can add comments on to collaborate with, and as well, the page source at the time the test was run, the network logs, and the console logs. And everything here, it's all very easily accessed through one URL. So, for example, if a test does fail, you could have a Slack message posted automatically, or an email, or a GitHub ticket. Basically, anything with a webhook you could post a report to for easy access and review. Now, that's a quick overview of the platform. I wanted to keep it short today, but if you'd like to see more, I'd be happy to run a further demo. I'm going to stop presenting there. Ryan, back to you.
I was just doing my clicking and I finished my clicking to get my screen back up on. So this is some metrics that we've witnessed from one of our customers. And by a quick glimpse at them, you can see why we have such happy customers and why they find testing to be fun.
Do you want me to add some colour to this one, Brian? Just
please, I would absolutely love that, Andy.
So this is from a global oil and gas company. And so what we're doing here is we're measuring Virtuoso's performance in simply automating tests or building automated tests against the application versus their traditional. Well, they looked at Micro Focus's UFT tool, which they had within the organization, and also a Selenium-based framework, quite a mature framework that's been up and running for 3 years. So really simple. The story is that within Virtuoso, you're able to remove just the heavy baggage. So having to work only with deterministic selectors, or having to build object libraries, to write code, to create commands, etc., etc. And also you can see the maintenance of tests there. It's such a huge difference, and such a huge time savings, which obviously gives so much capacity back to a team. So in terms of the estimated time then to maintain the automation that you build in Virtuoso very quickly is 96% lower than with their existing framework they had up and running. So that's a huge amount of time, consuming high quality, high valued, highly expensive technical resources. So that level of technical debt it should be really difficult to justify. So overall, the results are outstanding, and it's simply that the ease of use, working natural language, moving the automation left, which makes a huge impact, and just removing that heavy baggage and that complexity just delivers real time savings. Would you like to summarize, Ryan?
I'm absolutely there. Thank you. Yeah. So the takeaways: increased efficiency. It's 10 times more efficient when authoring, executing, maintaining tests. So reduced costs. The natural language processing based automation reduces costs on average by 75%. And it's about freeing technical resources, but also, I suppose, there's a lot of time where you can't get to the technical resources. Speed to test, 3 times faster. So we increase your speed and scale and the quality. And there's an absolute rapid time to return on investment. We have people, testing within minutes, if not, 10 minutes or seconds. There really is very little ramp up. And we're talking about making the most sophisticated of tests that cope with dynamic applications, not just kind of your what people may have come to expect with test automation in the past. It really is possible to have a codeless solution that deals with the most dynamic and offers a very quick return on investment, which I think leaves us with some questions. I know I've got a few in. If anybody does have any, please feel free to pop them in the Q&A. Do we have a wait function? I think this is very detailed. But is there a wait and an assert function within the syntax?
Yeah, we do have a wait function, and you can use it in conjunction with our assertion syntax, where you can say, wait up to 30 seconds for some element to appear. So you don't have to wait the full time. As soon as that element appears, it will continue. But on the same token, you can use standalone wait functions.
Okay.
And then in terms of assertions, I did mention we have assertions, but those cover everything from validating data exists on a page, or that perhaps API responses are greater than or less than different values. There's a lot to work with there.
Good. Then I think the next one might be for Stuart. So the 4,000 a minute really stood out for me. However, how easy this feels like a lot of transformation. How easy and quickly can this be done?
So in terms of setting up Virtuoso within an organization, we were with one of our clients earlier this week, and we set it up in 2 hours. And from that 2 hours, we were then able to actually build the first use case. Well, in fact, they built the first use case with some help from Virtuoso. So to be able to start off with providing operational assurance to 2 or 3 key areas, and then just building out over time. We also see the use of natural language syntax as a way of embedding that when you're actually developing automation, so you can lift and shift it into Virtuoso. So you remove all of the overhead when doing system testing, UAT testing, before you even go into production, and then using the same once you're in operational assurance.
Fantastic. And then I'll throw this open to whoever wants it. Probably Mark's better. I heard you can automate tests from wireframes. How does that work if you've not got an application?
Sure. So today, it's simply a case of using the NLP steps based on what you see in the wireframe. So within the wireframe, if you see input boxes for a first name, for a last name, and then a continue button, you would literally write against that to say, write Mark in first name, write Lovelady in last name, click on continue. Now, what we are looking at doing in the future is to actually be able to import wireframes from tools like Figma or Adobe XD. But this is more in the works at this stage.
Okay, excellent, Mark. Thank you for that. And then any more on the questions? If you do, please bring them in relatively sharpish as I kind of summarize what we've discussed here, and that's the lack of operational assurance costs money and applies pressure to departments. Automation tools allow early response through proactively monitoring. Virtuoso's no-code platform delivers an enduring operation assurance solution. AI allows tests to behave like your users do. And I do think that last point's worth looking at a little bit more while I wait to see if there's any more questions. So if a test's brittle and breaks, but your user wouldn't have noticed any difference, then really that's not the best test, and it's a problem that people come up against. With the AI we have at Virtuoso, the tests behave like humans do and like your users, which is really what you want to have with testing. Anyway, with that note, there are no questions, and we are 10 seconds away by my watch from the 1/2 the hour, which means we've been very good on time. It just leaves me to thank everybody for attending, to thank your panel, Andrew, Mark and Stuart, for their wonderful input. Let you know once again that we will be sending this to you by email to watch on demand. If you do have any questions, please do get in contact, virtuoso.qa. We'll even book a demo. I'm sure Mark will make some time for you in his very busy schedule. And then it just remains for me to say thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.